On February 1, 2026, Canada just made a move that could reshape North America forever, and it all started because Donald Trump threatened to collapse their economy. What you're about to see isn't just politics. It's survival. If you've ever wondered how one country can fight back against the world's largest economy, this is how it's done. In the next 13 minutes, I'll show you the families caught in the crossfire, the secret strategy nobody saw coming, and the 3 possible futures that could change everything. But wait. Before we begin, please subscribe to ensure that you never miss out on any of my essential stuff. Comment I subscribe below, and I will personally welcome you to our community. With that said, let's get started. Let's begin. January 14, 2026. 3:47 p.m. Eastern Time. Trump posts on Truth Social, effective March 1, 2026, 25% tariff on all Canadian goods. Additional 10% on automotive. Additional 15% on energy. CUSMA is over unless they agree to total restructuring. Do the math. That's up to 50% tariffs on Canada's biggest exports. Economic execution. Meet Elena Morrow, 34, Toronto auto parts distributor. She was at her daughter's school play, a kindergarten production, when her phone started buzzing. 15 texts in 3 minutes. She opened Trump's post. Elena tried to smile through the rest of the performance. Inside, she was calculating bankruptcy in 6 weeks. A 35% tariff on her auto parts meant her U.S. buyers would drop her immediately. Chinese suppliers were already cheaper. With tariffs added, her business was dead. The panic cascaded. Canadian stock market dropped 8.7% in 2 hours. The Canadian dollar fell from 73 cents to 69 cents USD in 48 hours. Parliament received over 100,000 emergency calls in 24 hours. The Bank of Canada released emergency analysis on January 15. Potential loss of $53 billion in GDP, over 300,000 jobs in the first year. Meet Marcus Williams, 29. He runs a canola farm in Saskatchewan. I export 90% of my crop to the U.S., Marcus said, voice tight. Trump's tariff meant I'd lose $180,000 this year. That's my entire farm. My grandfather's farm. Gone. Suicide prevention hotlines in Canada reported a 34% spike in calls within 72 hours. This wasn't economics. This was trauma. But Canada had been preparing for this moment for 8 months. And what they did next shocked the world. While Canadians were living normal lives, their government was building an economic lifeboat. Operation Maple Shield. A secret program launched July 2025. $47 billion in emergency funding. Over 200 trade officials secretly deployed to Brussels, Tokyo, Beijing, London. Meet Dr. Yuki Tanaka, 52, economist recruited for the task force. They flew me to Ottawa on a Friday, she said. By Monday, I was in a basement office modeling scenarios where 80% of U.S. trade disappeared overnight. A leaked February 2026 document from the Privy Council office showed Canada had been preparing for 8 months. The strategy had 3 pillars. 1. Emergency trade agreements with the EU and Asia. 2. Domestic production acceleration, billions into Canadian manufacturing. 3. Financial sector fortification, preparing for economic war. January 17, 2026, just 3 days after Trump's threat, the Prime Minister addressed the nation. Canada will not be bullied. Canada will not be broken. Today, I am activating Operation Maple Shield. The 5-point defense plan was announced. Immediate EU trade fast-track. $35 billion domestic stimulus. Energy export diversification to Asia. Retaliatory tariffs on $12 billion worth of U.S. goods, bourbon, steel, motorcycles. Strategic reserve mobilization. On January 19, Elena received a call. Ms. Morrow, this is the Canadian Trade Commission. We're connecting you with German automotive buyers. Meeting arranged for January 25. Elena cried. Not from fear this time. From relief. Marcus got his call January 22nd. The government subsidized his shipping costs to China. He had a buyer in Guangzhou within 5 days. I'd never sold internationally before, Marcus said, still stunned. Now I had no choice. A University of Toronto analysis published January 20, 2026 called it the most sophisticated trade defense mobilization by a middle power in modern history. The Canadian public rallied. 81% supported the government's response. #CanadaStrong trended globally for 4 days. But government plans sound good on TV. At kitchen tables across Canada, the real pain was just starting. Trade wars don't hurt governments. They hurt people. Food prices jumped 8% in Q1 2026. Gas surged 12%. Housing costs increased 6%. The Canadian dollar at $0.69 meant imports cost more. Everything got more expensive. Meet David Chen, 42, Vancouver father of 2, Emma, 7, and Lucas, 4. January 28th grocery trip. Total, $347. It used to be $267 for the same items. His daughter Emma pointed at strawberries. $8.99 for a small container. I told her no, David said quietly. She didn't understand why. How do you explain international trade wars to a 7-year-old? At the gas station, David watched the numbers spin, $97 to fill his Honda Civic. It used to be $68. He sat in his car for 10 minutes after pumping. Just calculating. Rent. Food. Car payment. Utilities. Daycare. The margin was disappearing. Statistics Canada reported 63% of middle-income households were experiencing acute cost of living stress. Credit card debt, up 11%. Food bank usage, up 19%. Mental health crisis, 41% increase in anxiety appointments. Meet Sarah Klein, 36, Calgary nurse, single mother of 2. I save lives, Sarah said, voice breaking. And I'm worried about making rent. She cut cable, streaming services, kids' activities. My son asked why he can't do soccer anymore. How do you tell a 6-year-old about trade wars? Meet Thomas Belanger, 51, Quebec construction worker. Laid off January 30th after 28 years. His company lost 60% of U.S. contracts. Thomas sat in his truck in the parking lot for an hour. He couldn't face his wife. Couldn't say the words out loud. But then something unexpected happened. Canadians stopped waiting for permission to survive. This is where the story stops being about politicians and starts being about people. January 15, 2026. A woman created a Facebook group, Buy Canadian 2026. 200 members. By February 1st, 2.4 million members. Local purchasing surged 34% according to the Retail Council of Canada. Canadian flags appeared in store windows. Not patriotism. Economics. Elena fully pivoted. 80% domestic suppliers. European contracts signed. She hired 3 new employees in February. Her revenue? Actually up 12% from the previous year. I'm not waiting for Trump or Trudeau, Elena said. I'm protecting my business myself. The second movement, currency rebellion. Credit unions launched Trump-proof savings accounts, diversified into euros, Swiss francs, gold. $4.7 billion moved in 2 weeks. David attended a financial literacy workshop. Moved 40% of his savings to diversified accounts. Started consulting for an Australian company remotely. Extra $800 a month. That's my buffer, David said. My survival margin. The third movement, the digital exodus. Canadian remote workers targeted European, UK, and Australian contracts. Digital nomad visa applications, up 89%. Meet Amira Hassan, 28, Montreal graphic designer. January 10th, lost her US client. Too risky working with Canadians. By February 1st, 3 European clients paying 20% higher rates. I felt worthless when I lost that client, Amira said. Now I feel unstoppable. She started mentoring other Canadian freelancers. Over 300 people trained. Thomas, the laid-off construction worker, enrolled in government-subsidized green energy training. Full retraining. Fully paid. I was terrified at 51, Thomas admitted. Now I'm learning solar panel installation. I have job offers before I even graduate. Meet Lisa Tran, 44, Winnipeg. She organized a 40-family neighborhood resilience group. Bulk buying. Skill sharing. Financial support. When Sarah, the nurse, couldn't afford her son's medication, Lisa's group raised $300 in 24 hours. Government help is slow, Lisa said. We help each other now. An Angus Reid poll from February 2026, 72% of Canadians had changed their financial or work behavior. From victims to agents. From fear to empowerment. But this wasn't just changing Canada. It was changing the entire world. This stopped being about Canada and America. It became about global power. Europe moved decisively. The EU fast-tracked free trade expansion with Canada in February 2026. Germany, France, Netherlands increased Canadian imports by 23% in January alone. European Commission President, an attack on Canada is a test for all of us. The Brussels Economic Forum published a paper in February 2026, Canada's resistance may mark the beginning of post-American trade architecture. Post-American. Asia smelled opportunity. China increased Canadian energy imports by 31%. Japan and South Korea signed emergency agreements. They weren't helping out of charity. They were moving because American economic dominance was bleeding. February 5, 2026, Mexico and Canada signed an emergency trade pact. Mexican President, if Trump turns on Canada today, we're next tomorrow. We stand together. February 8, 2026, Jennifer Park, Canadian trade official, presented Canada's case at the UN. Standing ovation from 94 countries. I've been in diplomacy for 20 years, Jennifer told me. I've never seen America this isolated. The US delegation walked out. That image, empty US chairs while the world applauded Canada, went viral. 47 million views in 24 hours. But the fracture wasn't just international. It was inside America too. Border state governors publicly opposed Trump's tariffs. American businesses lobbied frantically. Remember Robert Sullivan? The 67-year-old Detroit Trump voter? His town lost 340 jobs when Canadian suppliers pulled out. I voted for Trump to bring jobs back, Robert said, staring at his kitchen table. Now we have less. Maybe I was wrong. A Harvard Kennedy School analysis from February 2026, Trump's Canada gambit may be the costliest foreign policy miscalculation since the Iraq War. U.S. diplomatic credibility hit a 30-year low. If they'd do this to Canada, their closest ally for 150 years, they'd do it to anyone. So with March 1st approaching, how does this actually end? 3 ways this ends. Only one doesn't end in disaster. Scenario 1, Trump's total victory. Full tariffs March 1st, Canada capitulates. Canadian GDP drops 4.2%. Over 90,000 jobs lost permanently. Elena survives but loses 40% revenue. Half her staff laid off. Marcus sells his family farm to a corporate consolidator. 4th generation. Gone. David emigrates to Australia. Brain drain. Thomas's retraining program gets cut. A University of British Columbia study, complete capitulation would reshape Canadian identity for 50 years. Alliance destroyed. Trust gone forever. Harvard game theory models, 12% probability. Unlikely, but possible. Scenario 2, Canada's independence moment. Trump maintains tariffs. Canada thrives anyway. GDP contracts 1.8% initially. Tough 2026 to 2027. But 2028 recovery with new trade architecture. Elena runs 100% non-US business. Thriving. Marcus has permanent Asian markets. Amira leads a Canadian EU creative agency. Thomas employed in booming green energy sector. But the cost, 90,000 jobs lost. Regional devastation. Generational trauma. Carnegie Endowment. Short-term pain could produce long-term strategic autonomy. This may be Canada's 1776 moment. 24% probability. More likely. But still not the most likely. Scenario 3, the negotiated stalemate. Both sides step back. Nobody wins. Face-saving compromise. Tariffs reduced to 8 to 12% instead of 25 to 50%. CUSMA gets minor tweaks. Both leaders claim victory. Canadian GDP, minus 0.6%. Manageable. Recession avoided. Elena keeps both US and European clients. Diversified. Marcus sells to both markets. David's stress eases. Family stays. Amira maintains European clients as insurance. Thomas's retraining continues. But here's the catch. Nothing fundamentally changes. The relationship remains fractured. Trust never returns. We'll trade with America becomes the consensus. But we'll never depend on them again. MIT Center for International Studies, the most likely outcome is the least satisfying, muddling through. 64% probability. This is the smart money bet. Wild cards. What if Trump loses 2026 midterms? What if crisis forces cooperation? History pivots on accidents. You're thinking, I'm not Canadian. Why does this matter? Here's why. If you're American, your gas prices are affected. Canada supplies 60% of US oil imports. Your car costs are rising. Integrated manufacturing. 250,000 US jobs depend on Canadian trade. Meet Patricia Gomez, 38, Boeing, Seattle. I supported Trump in 2024, Patricia said. Now I'm on reduced hours because of his trade war. How is this helping me? If you're European or in the global south, you're watching proof middle powers can resist US economic pressure. Alternative models are emerging. What Canada does this year, you might do next year. The universal lessons. Diversification is survival. Never depend on one partner. Community beats individualism in crisis. Lisa's group saved more families than government programs. Adaptation beats resistance. Elena, David, Amira didn't wait. They moved. Government speed doesn't match crisis speed. Grassroots is faster. Economic wars have no winners. Only survivors. A Yale professor wrote in February 2026, trade wars are like nuclear weapons. The threat is powerful. The use is catastrophic for everyone. As I'm recording this, it's February 9th, 2026. We have 20 days until March 1st. What we're watching. Trump's been silent for 48 hours. Unusual. Canadian resolve. 79% still support their government. Back-channel talks are happening. Both sides still posturing. G7 meeting February 15th. All eyes there. The human stakes. Elena refreshes her email every hour. Will my contracts hold? David checks currency rates daily. Is my savings disappearing? Marcus watches trade news. Can I plant this spring not knowing who I'm selling to? Amira's building a business. Should I hire or wait? Thomas mid-training. Will this program still exist in 3 weeks? So here's what I need from you. Which scenario do you think happens? Drop a number in the comments. 1 if you think Trump wins completely. 2 if you think Canada emerges independent. 3 if you think they compromise. Tell me why. Second question, if you were in Elena's, David's, or Marcus's position, what would you do? Run? Fight? Adapt? Here's the real question that'll make some of you angry. Is Trump accidentally making Canada stronger by forcing them to stop depending on America? Americans, is this tariff worth the cost to your life? Your prices, jobs, allies? Be honest. On March 2nd, the day after the deadline, I'm releasing a follow-up revealing exactly what happened. I'm interviewing Elena, David, Marcus, Jennifer, Thomas. If you're not subscribed, you'll miss the moment we either witness the end of American economic dominance or Canada's economic suicide. 20 days left. Clock's ticking. Drop your predictions below. See you March 2nd. Don't miss it.